Hey everybody, as you can see I'm outside. Let's see if I can frame it up properly. Well, I'll just have to edit it and cut in here. That convenience store down there is the place that I usually walk to. It's like a 5-minute walk from my apartment. Walking back involves walking up a steep hill, carrying stuff, so it's a little bit of exercise, gets my heart going. But there is nothing in that store down there that is good for me. Everything I get there, with the possible exception of the brief human interaction at the counter, everything I get down there is bad for me. Be it something to drink, alcoholic or not, or something to eat. I mean, the food there is just, you know, it's shelf-stable stuff full of empty carbs and salts, and there's just nothing. I mean, I'm just better off in general not going down there, but it's become a ritual, you know. I reach the late to mid-afternoon and I take a stroll down there and I get some snacks and sometimes some drinks, but today I'm definitely not doing that. Alright, so I posted a video today. It's an antinatalist video. I've left the comments on for a time. We'll see if the antinatalists can help themselves, or if they will just give in to the temptation and make, you know, my points and Steve's points for us in the comments. Water with lemon juice concentrate and ice. I have research. By research, I mean I've written down the text from a slide. So I got good comments from a recent video talking about the new movie, what's it called, Planet of the Humans, and it opens up with on-the-street interviews, the filmmaker asking just people at random, how much longer do you think humans have? And some people said 10 years, and some people said infinite, and most people said, I don't know. And one woman said, we're like cockroaches, you know, we just scurry off to the corner and survive. And for her, this is bad news, you know, that humans will survive. As you know, misanthropy is a perennial pet peeve of mine. I don't go in for it, and I typically don't let it pass unremarked upon. But at the precise moment that I decided to come out here and shoot a video, my tablet, and usually if I'm responding to feedback, you know, I'm using the phone to shoot the video and I'm then reading comments and responding to them, but I'm reading them off my tablet. The tablet battery was dead. So, here is this graphic. What usually causes a species to go extinct? Well, climate change. You know, in the past, climate change has caused, but you know, climate change in and of itself is kind of a nebulous thing. Climate change itself doesn't kill you. Just like smoking doesn't kill you. It might give you lung cancer. The lung cancer will kill you, but the smoking doesn't kill you. Climate change is kind of like that. Typically, if a species goes extinct because the climate changed, well, the climate changing caused something else to happen which impacted the species. Like, it eliminated their food source, or it disrupted their habitat such that it wasn't viable for them anymore, or it changed the chemical composition of the oceans. That's one that's a biggie, I think. That's one that humans could not shrug off easily. But climate change, I mean, some species, I suppose, if the temperature rises high enough, they become infertile. You know, so climate change leading to temperature change could certainly cause a species to go extinct. Climate change can also cause loss of habitat. Loss of habitat listed here as another item that, you know, another cause of species extinction. Well, I can't reproduce it verbatim, but somebody said, look, as humans we can live in high-tech environments, or we can live in caves and hunt bison. Climate change or habitat loss, I mean, we make our own habitat for the most part. Even the ones living in caves hunting bison are still modifying their environment, you know, in order to make survival easier. Other scenarios are more interesting to think about. I mean, you know, climate change could lead to crop failures, which would be a lack of food, but humans are not going to go extinct from lack of food. We may not have access to sufficient food supplies to maintain our current, you know, grossly hypertrophied population, but there will always be enough food for a few humans to get by, mostly because we are omnivores. Michael Pollan wrote that great book, The Omnivore's Dilemma. The dilemma for a creature that can eat anything is, well, what do I eat? Koalas, they never spend any time or attention thinking about what they're going to eat. They're going to eat the leaves of a eucalyptus tree. That's all they eat. They don't think a whole lot about it. Orca, on the other hand, do seem to think quite a bit about what it is they're going to eat, because they come up with different answers depending on where they live, or who they grew up with, or what they know. So those are some of the bigger issues that I think human civilization faces, but I don't think those are the things that are going to take us out. But now, here's some more interesting, colorful things to imagine in terms of potential human extinction. Human predation. So like the dodo. Humans found dodos living on islands where they had no predators and they had no, fear response, and you could just walk up to them, club them on the head, and take them back to the ship and cook them up. I don't think humans are going to hunt humans to death, although it is an entertaining thought. It could make a fun movie. Another pair of fun things to think about in terms of human extinction: invasive species. Well, the whole planet is our habitat. So, an invasive species that's going to cause our extinction would have to come from someplace where we don't currently exist, which is to say from off-world. So we're looking at an alien invasion movie of some kind. Either overt, they come down in their big ships and they blow up our big, monuments and whatnot, and they do it in a spectacular way. Or maybe they're already here among us, passing unseen or undetected, masquerading as us or as cats. Perhaps everybody who owns a cat or keeps a cat in their domicile has an alien observing them, reporting on them, coordinating with the other cats, just waiting for the moment to strike. Something, a similar idea. Better adapted competition. So, for the most part, humans, not only do we not have any better adapted competition, we don't have any competition in particular. I mean, as an individual, there are many other animals that can kill an individual human, but they lack the human ability for language and the cooperative action, coordinated at huge scales. A single chimp, there's not a human in the world that could beat a normal chimp in hand-to-hand combat. Chimps are much stronger and fiercer, better fighters. I mean, there's just no way. The best MMA fighter in the world couldn't go a minute against a chimp. So invasive species and better adapted competition, fun to think about, unlikely. Something that I think definitely could take out the human species, not just our civilization. I think there's no guarantee for our civilization, for our high-tech civilization, but for our species. But yes, an asteroid strike could definitely do it. Potentially, if we saw the asteroid coming with enough time, we could do something about it. But something that we could not possibly do anything about would be a gamma ray burst. A sufficiently powerful gamma ray burst that just bathes this planet in lots of gamma radiation. Done. There is nothing we could do to prevent that if we knew it was coming. And, if we didn't know if it was coming, we'd never know what hit us. Most of us. But eventually, something really big and disruptive will hit the planet. But, it could happen tomorrow, or it could be another 250 million years before it happens. Could happen today. Could happen before I go back inside. But I'm just not worried about it. I don't see it. Gamma ray bursts, those occur when really high mass stars are at the end of their main sequence, and they explode / implode to become either a black hole or a neutron star, or perhaps a binary of two neutron stars orbiting one another. They eventually collide, and that releases more energy in an instant than our sun has in its entire main sequence. And that sends out a lot of gamma rays, not omnidirectionally though. Typically, two streams coming from the poles of the star that's exploding / imploding. And all of the really, bright gamma ray events that we've seen like that, which I think that's what quasars are, they tend to be, well, not tend to, they are always in other galaxies. Billions of light years away. Could it happen in our local neighborhood? I don't know. Maybe. Again, I can't worry about it because it won't be the result of anything that humans do. So you can't really describe it as just desserts or a tragedy. I mean, it just happens. You know, 1 minute, this place that is a little sanctuary for biology suddenly isn't. Like I say, moving to Puerto Rico won't get me away from the young men and their loud vehicles. I suppose that there is a topic that I should go back and do a second pass on. That is human predation. I don't think that humans are going to take up arms and just go out and hunt one another until there's only one person left and then that person dies. But there is the catastrophic or apocalyptic scenario whereby a human or a small group of humans do what they can to take out the rest. I mean, that was the plot of Godzilla, King of the Monsters. It was also the plot of Frank Herbert's The White Plague. That was the plot of Children of Men. It wasn't deliberate. I mean, it's unknown as far as I remember from the film what's causing sterility, but basically, you know, people just aren't having kids anymore. They can't. I could imagine that coming about. I mean, you could say, we could imagine maybe it's pollution. Maybe the environment gets so polluted that, you know, sperm counts drop to nothing, women stop ovulating. Basically, reproduction becomes either impossible or so likely to go horribly amiss that just nobody wants to take the chance. That would be a really interesting period. In Children of Men, everybody, not everybody, but enough people go psycho from, you know, lack of any vision of a potential future that society is reduced to, you know, vigilante violence just for the shits and giggles of it. But if suddenly people weren't having more children at all, not, you know, birth rates had fallen, but there's just no more, it would be a really interesting period to see the race to create artificial intelligence and robotics and other types of, you know, civilization extending apparatuses that may or may not have subjective experience, but they can continue on after the last human dies, at least for a time. It would be interesting to see how far we get with that, or, you know, how we try to make it work. But ultimately, you know, not just in terms of the fate of our species or the fate of technological civilization or of our individual nations. I mean, we have finite lives. In all likelihood, the world will be recognizable to you the day you die. It won't have changed so much that, you know, you think you've gotten to see how it all turns out. There will be developments after your death. There will be developments after my death. Neither you nor I will get to see how things turn out. And we just have to make peace with that. But Elon Musk, who posts a lot to Twitter, posted something which generated a lot of pushback, and as a follow-up, he asked, "What about 2030 excites you?" And somebody posted, you know, that there'll be no more humans. That excites me. It's like, yeah, there probably will be humans in 2030, and if there aren't, you won't know. I intend to be alive in 2030. And what I'm interested in seeing is by 2030, most of the boomers will be dead. I'm not saying I'm happy that the boomers will be dead, but I am excited to see what happens in American electoral politics once the ossified belief system of the boomers is no longer an obstruction to progressive policies and changes which are just too much for the boomer mind to encompass, you know, for the boomer mind to think about and say, yes, let's try that. Because the boomers have most of the wealth right now, and I know there are boomers out there who don't have anything, don't have a pot to piss in or 2 coins to rub together. But, you know, if you break it up demographically, if you break up the wealth distribution demographically, the boomers have most of it. Well, the people with the most money and the most stuff and the most status, the most seniority, they just tend to be conservative. And, you know, you might you might bristle at the thought that you're conservative, but you are. I mean, I'm conservative. You might hold positions that you think of as being progressive or liberal, but on a whole, but there's a whole spectrum of opinions that you have that, you are never called upon to examine them and decide whether or not they are conservative or liberal. And, conservative ones are always bad and need to be updated. Our thinking doesn't work that way. Our conversations don't work that way. When it comes to deciding what's liberal and what's conservative, for the purposes of carving ourselves up into different in-groups and out-groups, we can all be conservative about most things. In fact, we all will be conservative about most things. And that's just a basic requirement for cultural cohesion. But just as in science, defenders of the old paradigm, the superstars of the previous paradigm, they're going to hold on to it until they're gone. And I forget who said it, but, funeral by funeral theory advances. Well, the same is true in politics. Funeral by funeral, progressive policy becomes possible. And over the next 10 years, enough boomers are going to die off that it is going to change the calculus. It is going to change what is possible. And, it seems like every single election, the Overton window moves dramatically these days. Like, it moved more between 2016 and 2020 than it did between, I'd say, 1980 and 2000. That said, the Democrats do seem to have found the one guy who's willing to extend the drug war forever. Yay. All right. I'm not going to go off on a partisan political rant. I'll just wrap it up here. Humans. I'm afraid you're stuck with them.